Yeah, I'm totally down to go out tonight if you are. What are you wearing? I don't know where it is. I think Alex just did laundry. Maybe it's in there. Hey, honey.
Hi. But I'm not in trouble, right?
You're not in trouble. I would like to give you some advice.
As my stepmom, what guidance could you give me without dad being, like, in the way?
Doesn't need to know anything about this. Explore your...
Okay,
Maybe I can help you find the right places to touch.
you're the best mom ever.
What are moms for, right?
Fifth and final scene offers a nuanced and emotionally grounded exploration of mentorship, guidance, and the tender navigation of desire within the framework of queer women's experiences, centering on the interaction between Kendra and Alex, and opening with Kendra's intention to enjoy a social evening with her friends while simultaneously navigating her domestic space, which she enters expecting order but instead finds Alex engaged in a moment of experimentation that, while private and personal, also raises questions about the ways young women begin to explore their bodies and understand their desires in a world that offers little structured guidance or ethical modeling. And the film treats this encounter with sensitivity, emphasizing the interiority of both characters. Kendra as the experienced, compassionate mentor attuned to the emotional and developmental needs of Alex, and Alex as a young woman navigating the complexities of self-recognition, curiosity, and the tentative steps of sexual and emotional learning. And by framing the moment in this way, the narrative underscores that learning about intimacy and desire is a relational and ethically inflected process, rather than a spectacle or an opportunity for voyeuristic thrills, and it allows viewers to witness how desire and emotional literacy are cultivated within socially meaningful and caring contexts, emphasizing the importance of guidance, consent, and attentiveness in nurturing authentic relational and self-understanding. In this scene, Kendra's choice to address Alex's experimentation directly, rather than scolding or dismissing her, reflects a deep understanding of the ethical responsibilities inherent in mentorship, demonstrating that fostering self-recognition and emotional competence in younger or less experienced women involves patience, attentiveness, and the creation of a safe space for exploration, reflection, and the development of relational confidence. And the narrative carefully shows that Kendra's guidance is not about control or dominance, but about modeling healthy, respectful, and emotionally attuned engagement with one's own desires and the desires of others, which is especially relevant in lesbian and broader LGBTQ+ contexts, where opportunities for formalized education around relational ethics, emotional literacy, and intimate self-knowledge may be limited or socially discouraged. The scene further emphasizes the role of restraint and reflection in ethical mentorship, as Kendra navigates the tension between responding to Alex's experimentation with compassion and guidance, while also maintaining awareness of boundaries and the responsibilities inherent in being an older, more experienced figure in the relational dynamic. This careful negotiation mirrors real-world dynamics within queer communities, where mentorship and modeling often occur in formal spaces and require acute sensitivity to power differentials, age gaps, professional hierarchies, and the social risks associated with visibility, particularly in societies that remain ambivalent or uncomfortable with women expressing love and desire for one another, and where younger women may experience both curiosity and social risk in exploring their own feelings and behaviors. Alex's responses in the scene highlight the interior complexity of a young woman negotiating self-recognition, curiosity, and emotional vulnerability, illustrating how queer women often develop awareness of their own emotional and sexual capacities in relationship to others' guidance, modeling, and validation. And the narrative treats these experiences as both natural and ethically meaningful, presenting Alex's development not as sensational or performative, but as an authentic process of learning, reflection, and self-discovery, which resonates with audiences who have navigated the complexities of emerging desire and self-understanding in socially constrained environments. Throughout the scene, emotional intimacy is emphasized over any externalized or sensational content, with a focus on Kendra's attentiveness, Alex's receptiveness, and the careful ethical framework guiding their interaction, highlighting the profound ways in which women-centered mentorship can foster confidence, self-recognition, and relational competence, and illustrating that desire and learning are deeply intertwined with trust, care, and mutual respect. This approach challenges cultural tendencies to either erase lesbian intimacy or reduce it to spectacle or fantasy, instead portraying it as a site of ethical engagement, emotional complexity, and relational depth, emphasizing the legitimacy and significance of women-centered connection and mentoring, particularly in contexts where social norms often devalue or dismiss queer women's relational and emotional experiences. The film also foregrounds the role of ethical instruction in the development of self-knowledge, showing that learning about intimacy is inseparable from learning about oneself, one's desires, and one's capacity to act with both awareness and restraint, and that mentorship grounded in care, attentiveness, and respect can create the conditions for authentic emotional growth, mutual recognition, and the development of nuanced relational literacy, which is a core concern of the narrative and a central value in representations of queer women's relationality. Additionally, the scene highlights the symbolic and emotional roles each woman plays. Kendra embodies experience, guidance, and relational responsibility, providing an ethical and emotionally grounded model for exploration, while Alex represents curiosity, emerging self-awareness, and the openness to learn, and the narrative emphasizes the interplay between these roles, illustrating how mentorship, modeling, and mutual recognition contribute to the formation of ethical, emotionally literate, and self-aware relational identities within queer communities, and how these processes extend to broader considerations of women's emotional and relational lives. The scene also situates the learning process within real-world social pressures and constraints, demonstrating how women often navigate desire, curiosity, and intimacy while attending to norms of propriety, social legibility, and the need to be perceived as respectable and non-threatening, highlighting the ongoing negotiation between authentic emotional engagement and the socially constructed boundaries within which women operate, and how mentorship and ethical guidance provide a mechanism for negotiating these complexities without sacrificing self-recognition or emotional growth. By emphasizing Kendra's careful attentiveness to Alex's feelings, the scene presents an emotionally resonant depiction of ethical relational engagement, where desire, curiosity, and self-discovery are approached with restraint, reflection, and care, demonstrating that lesbian intimacy, when framed in this way, becomes a site of profound learning, trust, and emotional development, rather than sensationalism or transgression, and that ethical mentoring relationships can foster resilience, confidence, and authenticity for both parties involved. The narrative also addresses broader cultural dynamics in which women's expressions of desire, mentorship, and relational guidance are often misunderstood, minimized, or erased, highlighting how the film's focus on interiority, reflection, and ethical engagement challenges these patterns, insisting on the seriousness, nuance, and emotional significance of women-centered relationality, particularly in LGBTQ+ contexts, where visibility, validation, and guidance are often scarce or contested, and where mentorship plays a critical role in supporting the development of authentic self-expression and relational competence. The film further explores the intersection of desire, self-recognition, and mentorship, showing how these dimensions interact to produce meaningful, emotionally grounded experiences that extend beyond immediate gratification or spectacle, foregrounding the process of learning, ethical engagement, and emotional attunement as central to relational development, and illustrating how careful guidance can support emerging adults in understanding both their own desires and the relational responsibilities that accompany them, which is especially resonant for audiences navigating complex social and emotional environments. Moreover, the scene emphasizes the iterative nature of learning about self and relational intimacy, showing that development is a process of reflection, feedback, and mutual recognition, where guidance and mentoring are not static but responsive, adapting to the needs, questions, and comfort levels of the learner. And in doing so, the narrative presents a model for ethical and emotionally grounded exploration of desire that is both instructive and deeply humane, offering viewers a framework for understanding the relational and emotional dimensions of lesbian intimacy as a practice of care, attentiveness, and mutual respect. The scene also illustrates the subtle ways in which relational power and influence operate ethically within mentoring dynamics, demonstrating that influence is most constructive when paired with attentiveness, responsiveness, and a commitment to the learner's well-being, rather than coercion or domination, and that the cultivation of relational skill, self-recognition, and ethical awareness is an ongoing iterative process requiring patience, care, and reflection, themes that resonate with queer audiences and women broadly who have navigated similar dynamics of guidance, learning, and emerging autonomy. Furthermore, the film situates the emotional and ethical development of Alex within the broader framework of socialization, reflecting the pressures that women experience to moderate desire, navigate propriety, and remain legible and acceptable within their communities, and showing how mentorship and ethical instruction can provide a safe, structured context for exploring these pressures while fostering authentic self-recognition and relational understanding. And in doing so, the narrative asserts the legitimacy, significance, and emotional complexity of lesbian mentorship and learning. In addition, the scene emphasizes the importance of attentiveness, responsiveness, and mutual recognition as core values of relational ethics, demonstrating that mentorship in the context of desire and self-discovery is not simply about instruction or modeling, but about creating conditions for reflective engagement, mutual respect, and emotionally grounded learning, which allows for nuanced understanding of self and other, while navigating the complexities of social expectation and relational risk. The interactions between Kendra and Alex further exemplify how queer women often require frameworks of guidance and emotional literacy to navigate their relational and emotional lives safely and authentically, highlighting the broader societal challenges in recognizing and supporting women's same-sex desire, mentoring, and learning, and showing that ethical, emotionally attuned guidance can mitigate the risks and uncertainties that arise when these experiences occur in socially constrained or misunderstood contexts. The scene also presents a careful portrayal of trust building, emotional safety, and the cultivation of relational competence, demonstrating that the development of intimacy, curiosity, and self-awareness is most meaningful when accompanied by attentiveness to the learner's needs, responsiveness to emotional cues, and ongoing ethical reflection, and that these processes are central to the development of authentic, emotionally literate, and ethically responsible relationships among women, particularly in queer contexts. By emphasizing these aspects, the narrative challenges cultural tendencies to sensationalize or trivialize lesbian intimacy, insisting instead on its seriousness, nuance, and ethical significance, and presenting mentorship and learning as transformative processes that contribute to self-recognition, relational sophistication, and emotional resilience, reinforcing the broader cultural value of women-centered relationality and the ethical cultivation of desire, learning, and self-understanding. In sum, this fifth scene provides a thoughtful, emotionally resonant, and ethically rich depiction of mentorship, desire, and self-discovery, portraying Kendra's guidance of Alex as a model of ethical relational engagement that foregrounds emotional literacy, attentiveness, and reflective practice, highlighting the ways in which lesbian mentorship fosters authentic self-recognition, relational competence, and emotional growth, and demonstrating that the cultivation of intimacy, curiosity, and relational skill is most meaningful when framed within a context of care, ethical responsibility, and mutual recognition, offering audiences a deeply considered, thoughtful, and serious representation of women-centered relationality that prioritizes authenticity, reflection, and ethical engagement over spectacle, sensationalism, or taboo, and affirming the ongoing importance of visibility, mentorship, and emotional truth in supporting the quiet resilience and relational flourishing of women, particularly within LGBTQ+ communities, and serving as a cultural text that insists on the value and dignity of women's love, guidance, and relational care, as central to the ongoing project of becoming visible to oneself and to others in a world that continues to negotiate its acceptance of lesbian intimacy, mentorship, and ethical relational engagement, highlighting the ways in which trust, attentiveness, and emotional literacy enable the flourishing of desire, self-recognition, and authentic connection, while modeling a form of relational engagement that is simultaneously nurturing, responsible, and profoundly human. Ultimately situating the scene as a compelling example of how queer women's interior lives, mentorship dynamics, and relational learning can be represented with seriousness, respect, and ethical consideration in contemporary cinema.